What's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. This time we're going over a question I get quite a bit, and that question is, if you can't afford this card right here, Great Ape Son Goku Saiyan Instincts, what is a good alternative? I get this question actually a lot, and I can't blame you guys. It's a super expensive card. It's still over $100 at the point of recording this video, but I think there are a few pretty good alternatives to playing this card. Depending what deck you're playing, you're gonna have to do a little bit of figuring out to figure out what might be the best fit, but I've got about, I don't know, between 5 and 10 cards here. They're gonna help you guys figure out a pretty good budget alternative to this card. Guys, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. There are very free ways to help out right now. You can subscribe, like a video, maybe watch an ad. If you want to buy the cards you see in today's video, you can always use my link in the description to TCG Player. All that stuff helps me out a lot. Doesn't cost you guys a penny. That being said, let's get on into this video. So Great Ape Son Goku Saiyan Instincts, 2-drop 15k, but the real good effect is activate main, pay 2 of any color, send this card from your drop area to your warp, draw 2 cards. Now, this is that thing we talk about a lot here on the channel, and it's actually a pretty recently popular theme in Dragon Ball Super, and that's mana sinks. Because of the way that counterplays are, you don't really want to spend energy offensively to get counterplayed, because if you play a 4-drop, let's just say, that has like no protection, like just some random 4-drop like Foreseeing Hit, you get Vegeta the Crueled or you get Hidden Potentialed. Well, you just spent 4 energy and got countered for 1 to 2 energy, and you know, other things could happen. Vegeta the Cruel could rip a card out of your hand, Hidden Potential could untap your opponent in energy, things like that. So these mana sinks is what they're called, are really good because they're not really interact-withable. Your opponent can't really do anything to you doing them for the most part, and it's a good way to efficiently use energy to get some type of benefit. In the case of Saiyan Instincts, you get the draw 2, which is really powerful. But this card is, again, super duper expensive, not very applicable, not very manageable for every player. So we're going to talk about quite a few ways that you can mana sink in other forms. And a card that I'm a really big fan of right off the bat, Frost Before the Storm. Now, unfortunately, not every card here is generic, but there are a lot of options for a lot of different colors. So just bear with me, stay tuned, we'll talk about all of them. So Frost Before the Storm is a card I'm a really big fan of. So 1-drop, 4k, activate main once per turn, pay a red, draw a card. So this card doesn't do anything when you play it, but it has a lot of additional effects. Like I said, the activate main once per turn, draw a card. That is another way to get a mana sink, and it's a bit different than Saiyan Instincts. So Saiyan Instincts, you pay 2 immediately, you draw 2. This card, you pay 2, you draw 1. But then if you pay 3, you draw 2. Now, it is once per turn, but I'm talking about like in the subsequent turns that follow. Every time you pay an additional energy, you draw an additional card as long as the thing sits on the board. And now the auto, when this card's removed from your battle area by an opponent's skill, choose up to 1 Chaos Beam Frost from your deck or hand, play it, then shuffle your deck if you look through it. Now, that's a really cool way that you kind of get some value out of your card, because let's say they do remove it. Now, it's pretty hard in this game to remove 1-drops, because if you're going to pay 1 for a 1-drop, your opponent's going to feel pretty bad about like Hidden Potentialing that, or Vegeta the Crueling it, or what have you. They're going to feel bad about using their removal on this little 1-drop, because they're probably going to have to invest more energy than you did, meaning that their answer wasn't super efficient. And that never feels good when you're having to answer a battle card with more cost than the card you're trying to answer. So just with that in mind, this thing is probably going to stick around for a while. And every turn for 1 energy, you draw 1. Now, I am personally a huge fan of this card. I've used it in a lot of my competitive decks, especially on the Patreon. On the Patreon, I featured this in a deck that I think is really powerful, and I'll probably bring it to the channel eventually. But it's my starter UI Goku build, and now with Dropbox 5, it's even more powerful in my opinion. But anyways, I've used this actual card to competitive success, and I think it's really strong. I think it's a great mana sink. Obviously, it's tied to red, but if you're playing Surge Goku or some type of red deck, red, blue, red, yellow, red, green, whatever the case is, even in like Surge Broly, this card's awesome, because if it ever outlives its usefulness, you can just combo it off, draw another card, and you can play the other Frosts. The other one's a 15k. Once per turn, you just give something minus 5k, and then if that Frost dies, you go into a 30k vanilla. Pretty good value there. So I'm a big fan of this. I don't always play the whole Frost engine, but I think it is pretty good to note there. Next up, Hyssop the Frozen Titan. Now this is a different type of mana sink. 1-drop, activate main, once per turn, pay a yellow, choose up to 1 of your opponent's energy, and switch it to rest mode. So here's the thing. We just talked about 2 mana sinks, the Son Goku and the Frost. Those mana sinks get you more cards, so they're really powerful in that respect. This is a different type of mana sinks. Now if you're in yellow, maybe you're not in red, maybe you're not in red yellow, maybe you're in some type of other yellow deck, blue yellow, green yellow, whatever, you can use this card as your mana sink. Same principles as Frost Supply. It's going to be relatively difficult for your opponent to answer this efficiently because they're not going to want to invest more than 1 energy to answer a 1-drop typically. So when you're going by that logic, this card's a different type of mana sink. Instead of netting you cards, it taps your opponent's energy, and this can actually be very, very powerful in the right deck, because if your deck wants to be proactive, but if your deck has trouble dealing with counterplays like Vegeta the Cruel, Hidden Potential, Denial of Hope, things like that, this card can bypass those counterplays in what it does by tapping energy. So you're going to have spare energy anyway that you wouldn't have used if you would have just passed turn to not lose to the counterplay. So by spending that energy and tapping an energy, you're actually making a proactive play. You can then make maybe like a 2 or 3 energy play, depending on how much energy you have left over. This card is a very good alternative to Saiyan Instincts in the form of a mana sink. Illy, Dignified Supremacy, not exactly as good as Hyssop in my opinion, but there's definitely different strategies where this could be good. So activate main, pay a yellow and a colorless if your leader's yellow, and you send this card from your drop area to your warp, choose one of your opponent's energy, and switch it to rest mode. So this can be like your all-in button. You activate this card in your drop area, you tap your opponent's like 1 defensive energy or 1 of the energies they really need to defend. That can be your key that you're going for game with. Like, this card is really good because it's more similar to Saiyan Instincts. This card your opponent really can't interact with. So unlike Frost and unlike Hyssop, which do have a bit of a window to be removed and interacted with, this card pretty much your opponent can't do anything about it. So another good option for a mana sink when you do need to get past some of your opponent's troublesome energy. Universe 9 Assemble. This card is really, really cool. So this is a 2-drop double yellow extra card. Activate main / battle, which means you can just use it straight up. So draw 2 cards, semicolon. Draw 2 cards is the cost. So as soon as you activate this thing, you're drawing 2 cards no matter what. The rest of the effect might as well be blank. But I mean, you get to, if your opponent's tapped out, you get to play Universe 9. You don't have to play a single Universe 9 in your deck. Or you can actually play the Hyssop. That'd be a really good idea, is playing the Hyssop if your opponent is tapped out. But anyways, the fact is, pay 2, draw 2. It's almost as good as Saiyan Instincts. It does cost a card out of your hand, which, you know, Saiyan Instincts already be in your drop area, so it's a hard +2, but this is at least a +1, and if you're looking for a way to get your hand advantage up, this is a pretty clean way to do it. I'm a pretty big fan of that. Rebrand Punishing Passion. Now, we do have to talk about this card. If you are in green, this is like a reverse Saiyan Instincts. You pay 2. If your leader's green, you warp this card from your drop area. Then your opponent chooses 2 cards from the hand and places them in the drop area. Now, luckily, this card is on the decline in price. Last I saw, it was $30 per copy, which is a lot better when you're looking at Saiyan Instincts, which is about, you know, $100+ per copy. So I wanted to make mention of this card. It is definitely a decent option if you're, I mean, it's an amazing option if you're green and you can afford it. But I did want to make mention that this is a similar mana sink, kind of like the reverse Saiyan Instincts in a lot of decks. Piccolo decks will definitely be playing that card. Now here's a ultra generic one. This one is generic no matter what deck you're playing, not even a scratch. 1-drop extra card. It's a counter attack. Very simple text. Activate main, pay 1. Send this card from your drop area to your warp. Draw 1 card. So it's kind of like Frost and it's kind of like Hyssop in that sense, where initially you pay 1 to not really mana sink. Like in this instance, it's nice because you pay 1 to negate an attack, and then post doing that, the activate main, pay 1, you draw 1. So it's basically a 1 energy for a draw 1. You get some additional usage out of a card you pitched for a negate. So pretty great value there. The really cool thing about this card is it's a mana sink that some decks can reuse, like Demigra and Toa. You can constantly put this card back into your drop area over and over again with the leader effects. So you get some reusage out of those, which is pretty powerful. But in the grand scheme of things, if you don't have a better negate to play, if you don't want to play your Dimension Magic, if you don't want to play your Time Magic, which isn't actually too great right now, if you don't want to play Shocking Death Ball, which again isn't too great right now, as far as like the theme color negates go, this is a great replacement for those cards, and you get the additional mana sink out of it. And whether or not your leader can discard cards also matters, because if your leader can discard cards like Red Yellow Surge Goku, you can definitely play this card because you pitch it, pay 1 to draw 1. It's basically half the effect of Saiyan Instincts in that sense. So makes this card really, really powerful in terms of a mana sink. Koitsuki Mechanical Courage, probably butchered that name, but this is a 1-drop out of Dropbox 5. Activate main, pay 1. Remove this card from drop area from the game. Then choose up to 2 cards in your hand and place them at the bottom of the deck in any order. Draw cards equal to the number of cards that you place at the bottom of your deck with this skill. Then for the turn, if your opponent plays a battle card with 20,000 power or less, they choose 2 cards from their hand and send them to their warp. So this card's really cool. It's not necessarily a plus, but it does fix your hand. So you get to basically throw 2 dead cards away, draw 2 fresh cards, which is really, really powerful. That's a pretty good mana sink, and this is actually really similar to Saiyan Instincts. You know, the only real difference is it's not on color, so this card can't really help you with arrivals like Saiyan Instincts can, but this card does help you fix your hand, so it is pretty similar in that sense. It does cost 1 as opposed to Saiyan Instincts costing 2, and it stops your opponent from using Topo, Vegeta the Cruel, Mach Speed Kaioken. This card is incredible for basically letting you play your turn, and it fixes your hand. So even if you're not afraid of your opponent's counterplays, the fixing your hand part is still always going to be live. So this card is pretty similar to Saiyan Instincts in that regard. But guys, those are the cards I wanted to talk about today. Those are all the different mana sinks you guys can play instead of Saiyan Instincts that I think are pretty powerful. Let me know in the comments below if you guys have any suggestions for other cards that you could replace Saiyan Instincts with. Personally, I'm a really big fan of Frost Before the Storm, and I really like Hiss Up as well. And I'm also a big fan of Universe 9 Assemble. But there are a lot of different cards you can play. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys next time.